Hi everyone. Monday is usually a traditional watering day for some of my orchids. I like to check on them on a weekly basis. So what I'm going to do is take you around on a little tour of some of my orchids and how I deal with them based on the data that I've accumulated about them. So let's start with G4 and I'll show you the data that I have on it. So in the past month with this one, I've been on sort of a campaign to get as much water into the leaves as I can. And so you see July 11th, July 12th, I'm soaking it. And, I'm experimenting. I'm always experimenting. Then 4 days later, I soak for 2 hours. What is that? 5 days later on a Monday, WC means water culture, meaning I just put water in there, and it could be anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. Same thing Monday the 28th, Monday August 4th, 24 hours, Monday August 11th, I completely forgot about it and soaked for 36 hours. So with all that said and done, the weight of the vase and the plant, or the orchid, was 36.2 ounces at the end of Monday, August 11th. So let's take it out of the vase and see how the roots are doing. And as you can see, aside from the leaves being nice and hard now, look at all the root tips that are happening. Just all over the place. There's a lot of root growth down here and down here. So I'm very happy with that. And very often I leave these seeming stragglers because I'm not sure if a bud might pop out of them. For example, down here, we have one that looks like, see this one here, it's brown, and it seems like it's becoming woody, but then it becomes green again. So that's why I don't immediately mess with those. But in this case, excuse me, I'm just going to snip this. And here's another branch over here that's become woody. I don't think there's much hope for this piece, so I'll just snip this right here also. And I've turned it over, so now you can take a look from the other side. So this one's doing great. Let's put it back into the vase and then weigh it. Okay, there it is. So last week on August 11th, the whole thing weighed 36.2. Let's see what it weighs today. And we have 36.1. So I'm just going to leave it alone. And I'll wait another week before I check on it again. Another orchid I've been beefing up is W9. I bought this on March 23rd, 2025, and it had the most beautiful set of flowers I had ever seen. And in the store, there were probably 5 flowers, and then it continued to flower, and where I had 8 or 9 of them. And they held on for a month and then promptly wilted. And then the spike promptly wilted. And the reason being was because there was a lot of damage to the roots that you can't see when you buy it in the store. So you can see all of what I call burn marks from overwatering. It's as if this part of the orchid was in a fire and everything got charred. So we see this over and over again with these store-bought orchids. So long story short, after I got it out of the moss, all of the roots had terminated. There were no buds like this. And in those beginning days, I'm very careful with water because I don't want to reinvigorate any fungus. So, you know, I'll water it halfway and leave it there for maybe 4 hours and then dump it. So the roots that I was always concerned about are making a rebound. And it's always great to see buds coming off these terminated roots, you know, that were stopped cold during the fire of overwatering. So whenever you see root growth like this, it's a great sign. And I waited months for this to happen, you know, it just sat here like this and then suddenly buds start appearing. So it's great. All right, so let's put it back in its jar and we'll weigh it. And last week it weighed in at 16.5 ounces. So let's see how it's doing today. And it's 16.5 ounces, so nothing has changed in a week. Oh, there it goes, it's 16.4. It's probably 16.48 or something like that. I don't know how the scale rounds off, but it's very close to 16.5. So we're just going to leave it for another week. And back on its shelf it goes. Next up for a water check is Orchid 19, and it's a bit of a monster. So the leaves are in great shape and the roots outside of the bowl are growing. You see these great tips everywhere. So no problems with this one. Let's take it out of the vase and take a look at the roots inside. And there you have it. So there's tremendous root growth going on here. All of these green tips appearing just about everywhere. So this orchid is like kicking it. Now what I've done with this orchid throughout the entire winter would be to just spray these roots with about 1.5 ounces of water. So you can see here, this July 13th, this is just a continuation of what I was doing throughout the winter. I only started doing the post-its, you know, rather recently. But, you know, this is what it would have looked like, you know, every week, 1 ounce. And then sometimes, for instance, I have 1.0 ounces here followed by a D, meaning the next day there was still water there and I would just dump it. And then August 4th, I got into a water culture kick. I figured, let me try watering it for longer periods of time, since I'm always experimenting. So I did a 24-hour period. Last week, I forgot about it and stayed in there for 36 hours. So let's put it back in the vase and reweigh it. And there she is. Last week, the weight was 34.4. Let's see what it is today. And it's 34.1. So let me show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to return to my old routine with this one and spray in about 1 ounce of water, which is about 40 shots. That's 20. And there's 40. It's hard to see, but there you can see the water sloshing around. And, you know, I'll let this sit probably till tonight. And then if there's any water left in there, I'll just dump it. So that was 1 ounce of water. Next up is Orchid 1, and I've had this for over 12 years. This is my very first orchid. And throughout the winter while it was flowering, I would just spray the roots with about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces of water, and then dump the water at the end of the day. But for the past month, I've been beefing it up with water culture, just like all the others. And as a result, the leaves are nice and healthy. And I'm finding that the older leaves are like the sacrificial lambs of the plant. They're the ones powering everything. In other words, the formation of the new leaves, the growth of the roots. And so they're kind of like martyrs for the cause of the plant. It's very interesting. So you see a lot of root growth here, and let's see what's down below. And this is great, sorry, because it's happening all over. And so this is always a great sign when you see this kind of thing happening. Root tips everywhere. All right, I'll put it back in the vase and we'll reweigh it. So it was 23.9 last week. Let's see what it is now. And a week later, it's 23.8. So that's an insignificant change, and I'm just going to leave it for another week. And this is the last one, G3. Same as all the others. It had a set of flowers that lasted well over 6 months. And during that time, I would just spray it or, you know, put no more than 1 ounce or 1.5 ounces of water in the bottom and then dump it at night if there was anything left. Or, you know, if it went into the next day, I would just dump it. So that was what was going on during the winter. And now I've been beefing it up for the cold weather coming up, you know, in a couple of months. So the leaves are nice and healthy. Let's take a look at the roots on this one. And there's not a heck of a lot of growth, but it is starting here. So this is an indicator of perhaps what's to come throughout this root system. And for the past month, I've been doing water culture once a week from anywhere from 8 to 36 hours. And I think what happens is the orchid says, oh, great, you're giving me all this water. I have no need to grow because it's working out just fine the way it is. So I'll probably cut back on the water from here on in. But in any event, let's put it back in the vase and give it away. There it is, and we had 30.6 last week. Let's see what happens. And we have 30.5. So that's perfect for, you know, the plans I've had for it, which was not to water it much. So we'll let it go another week, and perhaps some new root buds will start showing up. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Got orchids everywhere. Over here is the intensive care unit. So all of these guys are recovering with partial roots and things of that nature. Here's my neighbor's orchid that's recovering. All right, so thanks for joining me once again.